I heard them before I saw them. I'd come home early from my business trip, the pharmaceutical conference in Boston that Marcus had insisted I attend because networking is important, Diana. What he didn't know was that the conference had ended a day early and I'd caught an earlier flight home. I was walking up the driveway of our Westchester estate, the house I purchased 5 years ago, though Marcus told everyone he'd bought it, when I heard laughter coming from the pool house. Marcus's voice. She actually believes I married her for love. Can you imagine? A woman's voice, sultry and amused. You're terrible, Marcus. I'm practical. Diana's worth $4.2 million, or she was when I married her 3 years ago. Probably more now with her precious company bonuses. Why would I work when I can just... He paused, and I could picture him making the gesture. You know. Use her credit card, the woman supplied. I prefer share resources. Sounds more equitable. More laughter. Besides, it's not like she's using the money. She's too busy working 60-hour weeks to notice when I take her Amex out for a spin. What about when she finds out about us? She won't. Diana's brilliant with drug formulations and FDA approvals, but she's clueless about everything else. I could probably bring you to Sunday dinner and she'd think you were my tennis instructor. The woman giggled. You told her I was your tennis instructor. See? Genius. She actually asked if you could give her lessons. I stood frozen in the driveway, my briefcase heavy in my hand, listening to my husband mock me with his mistress in the pool house I'd bought, on the property I'd purchased, with money I'd earned. So what's the long game? The woman asked. You can't keep this up forever. Why not? Diana's a walking ATM. As long as I keep her happy, tell her she's beautiful, pretend to be interested in her boring science talk, remember our anniversary, she'll keep funding my lifestyle. It's the perfect arrangement. And if she wants kids? God, no. Then I'd actually have to pretend to be a family man. Plus, kids are expensive. Better to keep things as they are. Her working, me enjoying the fruits of her labor. I heard the sound of kissing, followed by more laughter. I backed away quietly, got in my car, the sensible Toyota Camry I drove while Marcus cruised around in the BMW M5 I'd bought him for his birthday, and drove to a hotel. In my room, I opened my laptop and started working. Not on drug formulations, on divorce. By midnight, I'd done the following. Called my lawyer, Rebecca Chen, whom I'd worked with on corporate contracts. She gave me the name of the best divorce attorney in New York. Called that attorney, who agreed to see me first thing Monday morning. Opened a new bank account at a different institution under my maiden name, Diana Foster. Logged into our joint accounts and transferred exactly $4.2 million to my new account. Not a penny more than what I brought into the marriage. Canceled Marcus's access to my credit cards. Changed the passwords on all my investment accounts. Sent an email to my company's HR department requesting that my direct deposit be changed to my new account, effective immediately. Drafted a text message to Marcus that I'd send in the morning. Then I did something I hadn't done in 3 years. I slept peacefully. Monday morning at 5 a.m., I drove back to the house. Marcus's BMW was still in the driveway. I used my key, my house, my key, and walked through the silent rooms. Everything looked the same, the furniture I'd paid for, the art I'd collected, the kitchen renovation I'd funded, all of it stamped with my money and Marcus's lies. I walked upstairs to our bedroom. Marcus was sprawled across the king-size bed, snoring softly. He looked so peaceful, so untroubled by what he'd done. I placed the divorce papers on his pillow, right next to his face, along with a printed copy of our bank statements showing the $4.2 million transfer. Then I took off my wedding ring and left it on top of the papers. I walked back downstairs, packed my laptop and the few personal items I actually cared about, and left. As I was loading my car, I sent the text. I heard everything at the pool house Friday night. The ATM is closed. Divorce papers are on your pillow. Don't bother calling. I blocked his number and drove away. Marcus tried everything. He showed up at my office building, but security escorted him out. He tried calling from different numbers until I had my assistant screen all incoming calls. He sent flowers with cards that said, "Let's talk." It was a misunderstanding, and most laughably, "I love you." The divorce attorney, Janet Morrison, was a shark in Channel suits. "This is going to be easy," she said at our first meeting. "The house is in your name only. You purchased it 2 years before the marriage. The money you transferred was yours before the marriage, clearly documented. New York is an equitable distribution state, but Marcus has no claim to premarital assets." What about the renovations I made during the marriage? Those might be considered marital property, but we're talking maybe $200,000 in value. He's not entitled to your company bonuses, your stock options, or your salary. And since he hasn't worked a day since you married him, he has no income to claim you should support. He's going to fight this. Let him. Every hour he fights is another hour his lawyer bills him for. And since he has no money, she smiled. This will be a very short fight. She was right. Marcus hired a lawyer, using the last $15,000 in our joint checking account before I could close it. His attorney sent aggressive letters demanding half of everything. The house, my retirement accounts, my investments, even my company stock options. Janet responded with a single devastating letter outlining the prenuptial agreement I'd insisted on, the one Marcus had signed while joking that we'd never need it because we're soulmates, which clearly stated that all premarital assets remained separate property. Marcus's lawyer withdrew from the case within a week. 6 weeks after I'd walked out, Marcus showed up at my office again. This time, security called me before removing him. 5 minutes, I told them, then escort him out. They brought him to a conference room. He looked terrible, unshaven, wearing wrinkled clothes, thinner than I'd ever seen him. Diana, please, I'm begging you. I have nothing. I can't even afford rent. You should have thought of that before calling me a walking ATM. I was joking, trying to impress Sophia. Men say stupid things. For 45 minutes, I listened to 45 minutes of you explaining in detail how you married me for money, how you manipulated me, how you thought I was too stupid to notice. That wasn't a joke, Marcus. That was the truth. I love you. You love my money. There's a difference. The house, Diana. You can have everything else, but let me stay in the house until I get back on my feet. My house. The one I bought. The one you told everyone you purchased. No. Then give me something. Enough to start over. You have millions. I have millions that I earned through 15 years of education and 10 years of working 80-hour weeks. You have nothing that you earned through 3 years of lying and cheating. That seems fair to me. You're being vindictive. I'm being just. There's a difference. I stood up. We're done here. Sign the divorce papers or don't. Either way, you're getting nothing. And Marcus? Sophia called me last week. She wanted to know if you had any money of your own. When I told her you didn't, she stopped returning your calls, didn't she? His face confirmed it. Turns out, I continued, she was dating you for the same reason you married me. Money. Funny how that works. Security escorted him out. The divorce was finalized 3 months later. Marcus got nothing except the clothes in his closet and the BMW, which was repossessed 6 weeks later when he couldn't make the payments. I heard through mutual friends that he'd moved back to Ohio with his parents, that he'd gotten a job as a sales associate at a furniture store, that he was bitter, angry, telling everyone who listened that I'd stolen from him. I didn't care. I sold the house, too many bad memories, and bought a penthouse downtown, smaller, but mine, truly mine. I threw myself into my work at the pharmaceutical company. 6 months after the divorce, I led the team that got FDA approval for a breakthrough cancer treatment. The company's stock soared. My stock options were suddenly worth $8 million. A year after I'd walked out, I was promoted to VP of Research and Development. At the celebration dinner, my CEO gave a speech about dedication, brilliance, and integrity. Diana Foster represents everything this company values, he said. She's someone who knows her worth and never settles for less than she deserves. My colleagues applauded, not knowing the full story. But I knew. I knew that I'd spent 3 years being told I was lucky to have a husband who put up with my long hours and demanding career. 3 years of being made to feel guilty for being successful. 3 years funding a lifestyle for a man who saw me as nothing more than a bank account. And I knew that the best revenge wasn't making Marcus suffer. It was succeeding without him. Thriving without him. Building a life so full and rich and meaningful that he became nothing more than a footnote in my story. 2 years after the divorce, I was at a medical conference in Chicago when someone tapped my shoulder. Dr. Foster, I'm such a fan of your work on targeted cancer therapies. I turned to see a man about my age, attractive, wearing a name tag that identified him as Dr. James Richardson from Johns Hopkins. Thank you, I said. I'm familiar with your immunotherapy research. Brilliant work. We talked for hours about science, medicine, the challenges of FDA approvals, and clinical trials. He didn't ask about my personal life, my bank account, or whether I could buy him dinner. He just talked to me, like I was interesting, like my brain was the most attractive thing about me. When the conference ended, he asked if I'd like to get coffee sometime. "I'd like that," I said. 6 months later, James and I were dating. He was a doctor, financially secure, intellectually curious, and genuinely kind. He paid for dates. He was interested in my work but never felt threatened by my success. He introduced me to his family as Diana, the brilliant scientist I'm lucky to be with. When I told him about Marcus, about being called a walking ATM, about the divorce, he was horrified. "What kind of person does that?" he asked. "Uses someone they claim to love?" "Someone who doesn't understand the difference between price and value," I said. "Well, I understand your value, and it has nothing to do with your bank account." A year after that, James proposed. Simple, private, genuine. No grand gesture, no expensive ring I'd have to finance myself. Just him, on one knee in my apartment, asking if I'd build a life with him. "Yes," I said, "but we're getting a prenup." He laughed. "Absolutely, whatever makes you feel safe." We got married 2 years after we met. A small ceremony, close friends and family only. My parents walked me down the aisle. James of Best Man gave a speech about how James had won the lottery when he met me. At the reception, during our first dance, James whispered in my ear, "Thank you for giving marriage another chance, for trusting me. Thank you for seeing me as more than a bank account. Diana, you're a brilliant scientist, a compassionate person, an incredible partner. Your bank account is literally the least interesting thing about you." I laughed and held him closer. Later that night, I thought about Marcus, about the pool house conversation that had changed my life, about being called a walking ATM. And I realized something. Marcus had actually done me a favor. He taught me to value myself, to recognize when someone was using me, to have the courage to walk away from anything, anyone, who didn't see my worth. He taught me that I didn't need to be grateful for crumbs when I deserved the whole feast. The $4.2 million I transferred that night, I'd invested it wisely. It was worth $7 million now. But the real fortune wasn't in my bank account. It was in knowing, really knowing, that I was worth so much more than money. That my value couldn't be measured in dollars. That I was never just a bank account with legs. I was Diana Foster, PhD scientist, researcher, woman who'd built herself back up after being torn down. And that was worth more than any amount of money Marcus could have ever taken from me.